Ben Bradley.
Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate I have to rise, Mr. Speaker, to speak against the approval of this withdrawal agreement, which I feel doesn't represent the best deal for the United Kingdom, nor does it fulfil the spirit of the referendum result. It ties us to EU rules and regulations for the long term, whilst removing our ability to influence those rules. It ties us to a backstop arrangement that would create different circumstances for Northern Ireland compared to the rest of the UK, and which we cannot leave of our own volition. It ties our hands to prevent us taking advantage of the full extent of independence over our international trade policy. And for this reason, I feel it's the worst of all worlds. It's a state of purgatory, which the Attorney General yesterday was clear has no fixed endpoint. In her Lancaster House speech, the Prime Minister was clear. She said simply that we would seek to negotiate a bold and ambitious free trade deal with Europe that would also give us the ability to strike out around the world. She was honest with us, and she didn't pretend that this would have all the same benefits of full membership. We were leaving, so things would have to be different, but that we could have a positive relationship built around free trade. She aimed to take back control of our money, our borders and our laws, and she was quite right that these were at the heart of the reasons why people voted to leave. She said that no deal was better than a bad deal, and that if the EU wouldn't give us something that worked for the whole United Kingdom, then we could walk away and succeed on our own merits. And it's hard looking back to understand how we've ended up here, particularly when our manifesto in 2017 committed us to so much more. My Labour predecessor in Mansfield held the seat for 30 years, longer than I've been alive. But more recently, Mansfield has shown its appetite for change. Local people voted Conservative for the first time in 2017, sick of decades of representatives moaning about the past but having no plan for the future. They also voted overwhelmingly to leave the EU in 2016, fed up with being forgotten by the establishment and eager to take back control of their destiny. I'm under no illusion, Mr. Speaker, that each of my constituents, most people in the country, in fact, have dissected the details and come to a conclusion on their preferred customs arrangement. Some have, the vast majority have not. This doesn't mean that they didn't know what they wanted when they were voting. I've had this conversation on literally thousands of occasions now with local people who felt that, to coin a phrase, leave meant leave. It meant not being part of the institutions, not being tied to their rules and not paying in to their budget. We were leaving, in the English dictionary sense, to depart from permanently, to cease to be a part of the European Union. I think that's the fundamental misunderstanding by many, not just in this place, out there too, that it might be possible to make it look like leaving whilst actually seeking continuity. At Lancaster House, the Prime Minister did not phrase things in that way. She accepted our relationship would change, that it would be different and looser and give us the freedoms that we wanted. At that time, I'm fairly certain, and the votes back it up, that she had the support of the majority in this House for that kind of deal. I draw the comparison, though it's an overly simplistic one, between the referendum and a game of cards, a choice between stick or twist. Voters knew, and they were told each and every day throughout that campaign, the risks of voting to leave. They were told all the horror stories, it was overblown and exaggerated just as it is now, but they voted to leave anyway because the status quo does not work for them. In the choice of stick or twist, they opted for twist, recognising the consequences and the uncertainty, but wanting to take that risk in order to seek new and different opportunities, not to try and replicate the status quo, having ticked a few boxes that looked a bit like leaving. They wanted change because they felt that the status quo didn't work for them. You can't deliver an outcome that meets the spirit of the referendum result if we remain tied, possibly indefinitely, to the institution that we promised to leave, and if you compromise on all the things that mattered in that decision. It can't be boiled down to a spreadsheet with data on economic forecasts. It was so much bigger than that, and about the heart as well as the head. The outcome was for change. I will give way to my honourable friend.
I'm listening with interest to one of my Nottinghamshire neighbours. I wonder, when his constituents voted to leave, does he think that they voted to be poorer? As we've heard, every Brexit scenario will leave people in Nottinghamshire poorer.
I thank you for that intervention. I don't think people saw it in those terms. I think part of the fundamental misunderstanding from government and in this House is that people saw it solely as an economic transaction. As I just said, it was about more than that. And the overwhelming majority of people now, despite the forecasts and the doom and gloom that is discussed in this place and in the media, still come to me, and the vast majority, in local polling nearly 75%, say reject this deal and seek a looser relationship than this.
Let's go on, Frank. Picking up the previous intervention,
would he agree that his constituents and mine were very sensible and completely ignored these ludicrous forecasts, all part of Project Fear? They've been bombarded with further forecasts. They got more this week. They're utter nonsense. They don't believe them, and they see real opportunities for this country when we get our freedom back.
Thank you for that, and I totally agree. The more obscene these forecasts become, the less and less they are believed. My favourite was super gonorrhea. We're all going to get super gonorrhea if we leave the European Union. This week it's babies will die through the milk shortage of leaving the European Union. These are the stories that exist in the media and mean that people out there give them no credence or credibility. I have to say it was interesting to hear in the debate today my right honourable friend from Beaconsfield actually making many of these similar arguments. I'd argue that the right outcome to that, the conclusion, is not a second referendum, though. It is to deliver on what we promised. Well, it's absolutely right, I think, that people are sick of this debate and they want to get it done, but this proposal doesn't allow us to do that. Instead, the debate rolls on for another year or 18 months as we try to agree a future relationship. It offers little certainty to business and almost guarantees that we'll be back here again in 2020 having equally divisive and difficult debate. The withdrawal agreement as it stands doesn't end the problem, far from it, and I'd argue that actually the only way to truly get it done and put it in the rearview mirror, to get on with talking about a positive domestic agenda as members opposite have mentioned, is actually to accept that we can't agree, on a specific deal, so we go back and talk to the European Union about how we agree on all those things that we can, how we can agree on issues like citizens' rights and security and travel and all the rest, and carefully manage a transition to world trade terms. The only way to have certainty at this point is to have that clean break. I would prefer us to seek a more positive free trade arrangement first and to be strong in that approach. That's what we promised in our manifesto and at Lancaster House, but we shouldn't fear leaving on the same terms that actually govern 98% of global trade. There are better relationships that can be agreed further down the line, with or without this withdrawal agreement, that may be true. But most certainly our hand is strengthened by being true to the mantra laid out in that speech that no deal is better than a bad deal, rather than being held over a barrel over the coming year and threatened with this backstop arrangement, as President Macron has already told us he will do. The withdrawal agreement accepts, after months of saying it couldn't be done, it's impossible, it says in black and white that the Irish border situation couldn't be resolved through can be resolved through technological solutions. It's a political problem, not a practical one. And again, if we're better prepared for that debate if we leave and come at it from a position of strength. The World Trade Organization has been clear. The rules wouldn't require a hard border, and HMRC on both sides has said the same. If the barrier to achieving that is a political one, and the Prime Minister is right that there is no deal without the backstop, then we have to take charge of that debate in the interests of the whole of the UK and put ourselves in the driving seat, saying this is not acceptable, and how do we handle that no-deal scenario? Because we're not going to agree to something that is detrimental to the United Kingdom. That's the only way to force this issue. The issue that currently dictates this entire arrangement, which has always been built around the problem rather than being built around the positive outcomes that we all wanted to see. My honourable friend from North Shropshire laid out earlier, with great experience of this issue, customs has moved on and we have to embrace that, and the EU has to embrace that too. It's a divisive issue, and reaction is of course mixed. I've had constituents ask me to support the deal, to support remaining, but as I said in response to the honourable member from Nottingham South's intervention, the overwhelming majority in my constituency, whether it's collaring me in the street, whether it's answering me on social media or writing to me, want us to be stronger and to agree a looser arrangement with the European Union that gives us the freedom that they sought. We have to start from the premise that we are a free and independent nation seeking a trade deal with Europe, as we laid out at Lancaster House, not from the position of seeking continuity with our existing arrangements, as this agreement does. If we do that, and if we truly take back control and deliver on the referendum result, it would restore the brittle faith in democracy that led to that outcome in the first place. It will prove to people in constituencies like mine that in fact government does listen and it does act on your decision, and you do have a voice. Brexit presents a huge opportunity to give people who have felt forgotten for a long time a chance to believe in government and to believe in a country that's proud, independent and embracing new opportunities across the whole world. But I regret that this withdrawal agreement can't deliver that outcome.